And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Aeon's End Legacy. So before we jump into this, I want to go over the fact that I'm not going to be showing you how the game works and everything. The main reason for that is that this is a legacy game in which games will change and stuff, and there's no way I can really show you anything inside this box without spoiling stuff. Now, just so you know also where I'm coming from, I played this solo going through, and I played a solo person playing two characters as I went through, just because I know you could play one character, but I thought the two characters and having them go back and forth would be a little bit more interesting. So this is based on a very popular deck building game called Aeon's End, and this is a legacy version which will play through a series of games, and then when it's done you have a version of Aeon's End that you can play perpetually. And I think I want to start there as I talk about this game. So this is a deck building game. It's in a fantasy world. You have a bunch of characters that are fighting these giant creatures or fantasy beasts, or in one case fungal beasts, come and are trying to destroy this town. And you are defending the town while trying to fight off this big mega monster. This mega monster sponsors minions, or spawns minions, I guess he sponsors them too, spawns minions, and you are building a deck of cards that will let you buy other cards, that let you do some weird things, but mostly they're spells that you are placing into different slots, and then on a future turn you will cast those spells. And you have to decide whether you will take out the minions or go after the big bad, whoever they may be. And that's kind of how the game is. There's different decks. There's 9 different decks that you'll be able to buy from, and those decks, as a legacy game, will change in and out. You'll get cards and stickers and things that only you have. Now, I will say, before we get anything else, this may be the best of all the legacy games for replayability when done. The game comes with a book on what to do when it's not, well, a pamphlet of what to do when you're finished and how to set this up so that you have your own Aeon's End legacy games. The only disadvantage to that I might see is you write on a lot of cards and things over the course of this game. And that's fine, you know, that's how legacy games work. But if you're playing it later on, that may be sort of, hey, we're playing this game. Why is your handwriting all over these cards? That may throw off people if they play with you in the future. But other than that, I give them a lot of props that is a thing that can be done with this. Quality-wise, the game came with a sheet that said, hey, there's some errors, blah, blah, blah. No big deal. You know, that's how legacy games work. I will say the stickers came off poorly, I thought. Some of them didn't fit on the spots very well. And I'm still not a big fan of the art and theming of this game, and I'm a huge non-fan of the actual story and writing. It feels trite and not that interesting. I'm not an author, but I read a lot, and this I wouldn't consider to be that great of prose. It's just okay. The story is there. Bad guys show up almost for no reason. They tried this big bad thing at the end, which I just didn't feel landed very strongly. It's okay, in my opinion, but I know a lot of people like it. I just don't like the look of it. It looks like it's a fantasy world with some unique twists and things, but essentially at the end of the day, they're like, let's take this monster and shoehorn it in. That's what it feels like. Some monsters feel like they're from anime. Some monsters like they jumped off the Magic the Gathering card. And so the theming of this just hasn't worked for me. But to be fair, that's how I also felt about Aeon's End. So if you like Aeon's End, you'll like Aeon's End Legacy. The game's a deck builder, and it's a unique deck builder in the sense that you are building a deck that is not shuffled. So when you're done with the cards, you flip them over on the other side so you can kind of set up how the deck's going to work. It also is a deck builder where you're attacking things, but you have to set the attacks up ahead of time and even open up these portals that you can place the cards in, or breaches that you'll place the cards in to attack with. So that's an interesting concept. I don't know for me if it's a strong enough thing that I want to keep playing it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, which you do for this legacy game. To that end, I enjoy Aeon's End, the normal game. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. And this actually made me consider dropping it because I felt like I was doing the same thing, and it doesn't feel as clean and as interesting a system. And while, yes, in this game, you don't shuffle your deck, so that's neat. You do shuffle the turn order deck, which I found made for some pretty strong randomness there. Now, taking all that aside, all that randomness, this game has a phenomenally great tutorial system. It's really easy to jump into that first game, and the second game, they lead you right in there. There's sometimes confusion where you'll say, do this if you haven't done this yet, and you're like, how would I possibly have done that? But there's probably ways around to get there, but it just teaches you straight up. Now, Aeon's End, the regular game, has one of the best tutorial systems in a game ever. So this follows that procedural. Yet, despite all that, I don't know that I would recommend this to anybody who's never played Aeon's End. Play Aeon's End first. This legacy game, and this is what I'm reviewing today, how does this compare to legacy games? So in this game, there are stickers, and there are things, and there are envelopes, and there are boxes to open. But I'll say, I already said I wasn't a huge fan of the story. And I think you have to be a huge fan of the story because that's where most of the legacy come from. Adding different mechanisms and things, I was like, oh, sure, cool. There was nothing that kind of blew my mind like, what? This is in the game? It just didn't happen. Now, I'm not saying a legacy game needs to have that, but it also felt like it was a little modular, you know, rather than legacy in that regard. Yes, there's stickers and things, and you have a customized character, but sometimes I would just go, I guess I'll customize them this way. It didn't feel like hardcore legacy, I guess, in that end. But, to be fair, then at the end of the game, it makes it really easy to transition into the, hey, it's a game that we can play over and over and over again. This one's a hard one for me to rate. Maybe some people will say you would have enjoyed it more had you played it with other people, and that's possible. But I'm going to give it a 7. That's a still pretty good review. I like the legacy aspects. I think it's really well designed. And I just can't go higher than that because the theming and the story. I said it in my initial review, that this game reminded me a lot of Sentinels of the Multiverse, and I remember taking some heat for that. Now that I've played it again, years later, it still feels like Sentinels of the Multiverse. There's one big bad guy with minions. That's how Sentinels of the Multiverse is. You have your own deck. Now there's differences, but there's that aspect out there, and I can see that aspect. Do I want to fight off these minions who are causing a problem, or do I want to fight the big bad? I feel like this is a game that's mechanically sound, and it's good in that way. And I think it would be enhanced even more if you could get into the theme, and I just can't. It just has nothing there for me in that regard. And even jumping from one game to the other just was like, hey, we're shifting some parameters here, which again, a lot of legacy games are. So I know this is actually, at this point, coming off as a negative review, and I don't mean it to be one, because I did have a good time playing the game. But I also feel now that I'm done with the game, that I'm done with it. I don't want to keep playing this Aeon's End Legacy on, and I feel like I'm good with Aeon's End as a whole. It's a good, solid game system, but I'm not feeling this driven desire to go back to it and play it more and more and more. So, if you like Aeon's End, slam dunk. You'll love this because it's Aeon's End and you're going to watch twists and turns, and it's basically a campaign version of that with stickers and stuff. It's a legacy version of Aeon's End, right? It works. If you're not a fan of Aeon's End, this isn't going to change your mind. If you've never played Aeon's End, I think you should play it first before jumping into this legacy version. This is a well done one in the series, and like I said, has that long-term replayability. And to that end, I don't think you're wasting money getting it. So those are my thoughts on Aeon's End Legacy. An Aeon's End fan would probably give this a 10 out of 10. But I liked it well enough that I had a good time playing through it. I'm Tom Vasel. Thanks for watching the Dice Tower. We'll see you next time.